I'm sorry too, Mr. Sims. Because you know what I'm going to do inasmuch as I can't punish Mr. Havemeyer, Mr. Potter, or Mr. Jameson, and I won't punish Mr. Willis. He's the only party to this incident who is still worthy of calling himself a bared man. I'm going to recommend to the disciplinary committee that you be expelled. Mr. Sims, you are a cover-up artist and you are a liar.
But not a snitch.
Excuse me?
No, I don't think I will.
Mr. Slade.
This is such a crock of shit.
Please watch your language, Mr. Slade. You are in the Baird School, not a barracks. Mr. Sims, I will give you one final opportunity to speak up.
Mr. Sims doesn't want it. He doesn't need to be labeled still worthy of being a bared man. What the hell is that? What is your motto here? Boys, inform on your classmates, save your hide. Anything short of that, we're gonna burn you at the stake? Well, gentlemen, when the shit hits the fan, some guys run and some guys stay. Here's Charlie facing the fire, and there's George hiding in Big Daddy's pocket. And what are you doing? You're gonna reward George and destroy Charlie.
Are you finished, Mr. Slade?
No, I'm just getting warmed up. I don't know who went to this place. William Howard Taft, William Jennings Bryan, William Tell, whoever. Their spirit is dead, if they ever had one. It's gone. You're building a rat ship here. A vessel for seagoing snitches. And if you think you're preparing these minnows for manhood, you better think again. Because I say you are killing the very spirit this institution proclaims it instills. What a sham. What kind of a show are you guys putting on here today? I mean, the only class in this act is sitting next to me, and I'm here to tell you, this boy's soul is intact. It's non-negotiable. You know how I know? Someone here, and I'm not gonna say who, offered to buy it. Only Charlie here wasn't selling.
Sir, you're out of order.
Out of order? I show you out of order. You don't know what out of order is, Mr. Trask. I'd show you, but I'm too old. I'm too tired. I'm too fucking blind. If I were the man I was 5 years ago, I'd take a flamethrower to this place.
My all-time favorites, ladies and gentlemen. One of my all-time favorites. Welcome inside the numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. How appropriate, right? One of my favorite Thanksgiving movies. Honestly, it may be my favorite movie ever, right, Laura? I mean, it's up there. Scent of a Woman is up there. Al Pacino, just fantastic. But very, very appropriate for the time we're living in. I do believe you're building a rat ship here. Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you, it is a immortal monologue. Immortal. I have a bunch of clips. If we have time, I'll run some more, but they're great Thanksgiving clips. Some are hearty, some are fun, some are funny. That one, you know, it's great, but it's not really funny because it really does show you where we were, where we have gone, and where we are now, right? And of course, for those, this is tomorrow's Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving. If it's loud, it's because this place is filled with fam, and that's okay. We have a lot going to go over. It's also Friday, so it's the Friday edition kind of thing. So get your questions in. Laura will grab and throw them in the chat box. All right, but I wish I had more time to go over what, you know, the origins and the spirit of Thanksgiving really is all about. If you want, sometimes I believe I've done it twice on the show before. If you go to peoplespunditdaily.com and you just type in Thanksgiving, you will find a slew of articles about it. Thomas Purcell, a great writer, fantastic author, used to host Liberty Never Sleeps, and you know, he does it when he can. But he had written numerous articles about it on People's Pundit Daily, as Dan Mitchell as well from the Cato Institute. So a lot of great stuff, of course. And I feel like this is something, you know, just to tie this all in with polling. I remember the Thanksgiving of 2015. And then, of course, I remember the Thanksgiving of 2016. And I feel like there's that same kind of scent in the air, I guess, right? All right, let's get into it. We haven't had a chance to go over Michigan a whole lot. I've been doing a lot of media stuff, and you probably have seen me around talking about it, but now it's time to get into it in a little bit more detail. All right, let's pop this puppy up and we will throw, actually, let me make it big so you guys can see it. All right, so here's Michigan. As always, go over the little things and, it says keys. Let's see if it updated yet. It probably did not. Sometimes when it catched, we're like pumping out these maps and we put the same templates of stuff in there and just change the numbers, change the sampling errors, change the sample sizes. And originally, I forgot to change Keystone to Wolverine, and it's still in there. If you go to the live version of the map, you'll see that it is changed, but everything else, of course, is right and appropriate. You can go through big difference here, folks. I just want to, because I want to get onto the primaries, which we have not had a chance to touch. We have Bob Vandersplatz endorsing Ron DeSantis. And, of course, every day, every week, media love a horse race. It's always something new. The fact of the matter is, it is not going to do anything. Just like Kim Reynolds' endorsement has not done anything. Morning Consult, just a few days ago, again, put out their most recent update of gubernatorial approval ratings. You could see it clear as day. The bottom dropped out from the third quarter, the last quarter. The bottom dropped out of both DeSantis and Reynolds. Why? Because those are two governors who absolutely needed the former president to become the figures they were. All right. You're not going to eclipse or beat a guy that you needed to stand on the shoulders of in order to get to the heights that you got to. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? And the minute you betray them, then the people who supported you because they support him are gone. And that is what the Morning Consult is showing. That is what all these polls are showing, including our own. Bob Vanderplatz is not likely to do anything different. This is a man who ran for governor multiple times and lost, all right? He, like Robert Barnes has said, had this reputation of having some voodoo-like power of supporting the one who inevitably won in the Iowa caucus. The truth to be told is it was very easy to predict who would have been the one who could reach out to evangelicals in the Iowa caucuses. He just got behind them, and that's how this goes. There's a very, very, very disturbing clip of him with Brett Baer pushing the endorsement yesterday. If you just go and follow it on social media, the replies are really bad. And I think that ultimately there's going to be a problem with this. You can't take $100,000 from somebody and then endorse them and not have it raise questions. There's something very, very wrong with that. And evangelicals are not going to be okay with that. I don't know what world some of these pundits in the Trump era are living in. They simply are incapable of covering this guy objectively. They're incapable of it. And of course, we're going to have our own Iowa caucus poll out very soon, which is why I wanted to get to some of the primaries today. We kind of blazed through Pennsylvania, we blazed through Michigan, and everyone cared about the general election numbers, but we didn't get a chance to go over the primary numbers very much at all. Let me just tell you what's happening real quick in Michigan before we get into the primary numbers, all right? Republicans, if you want to win the state of Michigan, let me back away for a second. If you want to win the state of Michigan, there's a very simple formula in the past. Reagan used, Trump used in 2016, and he used, of course, followed that template in 2020. He just didn't hit the marks he needed to hit, so fell a little bit shy. But nevertheless, the areas were still showing that same calculation if you're following a certain equation to win the state. And in order to do it, it's very simple. Let's bring it up again. It's simply stated. It's not simple to do. All right. And there's a reason for that. This is called the Upper Peninsula. Okay. Outside of Marquette, which you could see labeled right here, that's more conservative. Not all Republicans perform in the Upper Peninsula as well as some Republicans like Donald Trump. They just don't. Now, you can squeeze a lot out of that state. You can squeeze a lot of blood from that stone, but it's not enough if down here in the Southeast region, you don't do a few things. Now, Democrats have some areas. They have Lansing. They have parts around Ann Arbor and Kalamazoo and Grand Rapids. All right, so it's not just Wayne County and the surrounding area. There are pockets of Democrat support in Michigan, so you really need to do a few things. One, down here you have Monroe County. That is a Republican county as in the modern era, but certain Republicans win it by huge margins. Some win it barely. For instance, Tudor Dixon, she did not do that well in Monroe, and she actually lost the other county that's very important here, which is Macomb County. Trump won Macomb County twice. He won it by a slightly larger margin the first time, but nevertheless, he won it twice. Tudor Dixon lost it. Most other Republicans lose it. It's the home to the old Reagan Democrat. If we ran a voter analysis in the state of Michigan right now with the machine learning model and AI, it will profile these voters. We have to infer because there's no registration. And you will see that Democrats still outnumber Republicans in Macomb County. You go further south a little bit, you get into Warren, and it gets more Democratic. They only vote for a certain kind of Republican. Donald Trump is that kind of Republican. Other Republicans like a Ron DeSantis or Nikki Haley are going to lose that part of Macomb County. And if they win it, they'll only win it by a slight margin, and it will not be enough. So when I tell you like Nikki Haley's numbers are fake, that's what I mean. Nobody knows who Nikki Haley is. It's a very generic thing. Once they figure out who she is and what she's all about, she will slide like a you-know-what out of your after you went to White Castle. All right? This is not negotiable. Those numbers are not real. Jeb Bush never had a chance to win Michigan, despite what all of the polls were saying. He was a stronger candidate. Mitt Romney, he was the strongest candidate. Rick Santorum would have had a better go at Michigan than Mitt Romney. Why? Because he was a blue-collar Republican. So despite what all of those early polls showed, that was not true. Nobody really knew the plutocrat, the technocrat, the mixture of what is now known as Mitt Romney. People knew the name Bush, but they didn't know Jeb all that much. And by that time, there was some, and there always is, nostalgia, which gives a former president better ratings than they had when they were in office. Ironically, Trump's ratings are the one that turned around at a historic rate. It usually takes years. But within the first year of Biden being in office, we could already see Trump's approval rating, retroactive approval rating, going higher. All right, so let's get to it. You got Monroe, then there's Macomb. Next to Macomb is Oakland. Oakland used to be Republican or more Republican, especially parts like Holly, and it got more Democrat over time because it's more educated and it's more wealthy. This is the big deal of this poll. Massive gains in the southeast of Michigan that he could not have made if he did not do better in Oakland County. Normally, you're going to get crushed. Biden won it by 15 points, some 15 points. Hillary won it too. She didn't win it by that much, and that's what helped to doom her in. They're going to net, they being Democrats, 300,000 votes out of Detroit, usually in a normal election cycle. Not this one. Trump is already at his Macomb targets. Most Republicans, they can fall into the 20s. Trump usually gets around 30%, something like that. He could get, a little bit more than a third in Macomb at this point, which would be a massive damage to the statewide margin for the Democrat. When you are taking 5 points off of an urban margin, you are taking a lot of votes. Now, that combined with what I'm seeing in Monroe and Macomb and Oakland, I was stunned that he had such a big lead in this poll, and he does. He leads Biden by almost 5 points, 4.7 points. I have never polled the state of Michigan and had a presidential election 5 points. I went back and looked after I was on the Stone Zone last night. The biggest lead anybody ever had in our polling in the state of Michigan was Hillary Clinton, and it was a poll a couple of months before Election Day in 2016. She had a 3-point lead. That was it, with a lot of undecideds, but a 3-point lead. All right, so moving on here. Oakland is not a 15-point margin anymore. The Oakland-Macomb area combined is damn near tied. Biden has about a 5.5-point lead in Oakland County. That's it. Trump is already slightly higher than where he was in 2020 when everybody was decided and the margin came in. So without a doubt, if the election was today, he would outperform his 2020 performance in Oakland County, which is devastating to Joe Biden. And then on top of that, he's leading in Macomb by nearly 20 points. Monroe, too, which is a little bit weird. Monroe usually votes a little bit more to the right than Macomb. For Trump, it votes more to the right, period. But when Trump is on the ballot and they're voting on Donald Trump, Monroe is usually a few points more Trumpy than Macomb. Right now, they're both looking pretty much very close, 60-40, which is incredible. I mean, that is the margin you need in order to win the state of Michigan. Couple that with how much better he's doing in Wayne, because he's doing better with non-white voters. Couple that with him holding and retaining those rural margins in the rest of the Upper Peninsula and Central Michigan. In the Southwest, he's going to win it by the margin he wins it by, maybe even a little bit better. I would say it's probably going to be about even, because you have certain areas, Kent County, they did shift back to Trump a little bit, but not 5-10 points. They shifted back a little bit. It's getting more Democratic, Kent County, Grand Rapids. So I wouldn't be surprised if Southwestern, that region of Michigan, stays about what it is or was in 2020. It's what's going on in Southeast Michigan that really is the story. All right. Now, while we do that, I really, really am shocked. I thought that Pennsylvania would be significantly more Trumpy. It's not at this moment. That may change. We'll see. Worth noting before we move on, though, Trump's lead does fall a little bit in the 5-way race, but it falls to 3 points, basically 40-37. Trump's lead refuses to fall once it gets to a certain level. Doesn't matter if you add 5 candidates or you add 10 candidates. Once he gets to 40%, he refuses to decline any further. That is not true of Biden and other Democrats. All right, let's look at the primary, which I could scroll down to, but let's check out the primary here. Whoa. Among all registered voters, 61.4 to 11.1 for Ron DeSantis. By the way, we did spin through Pennsylvania as well. Ron DeSantis is actually in third place. It's statistically, insignificant, but Nikki Haley is 9.7, Ron DeSantis 9.5, Vivek Ramaswamy 6.2, Trump at 61%. Notice Pennsylvania is a little bit more, the likely voter model does help Trump a little bit. He rises to 63, Nikki Haley rises to 11, Ron DeSantis does not rise. He stays at basically 10 rounded, and Vivek actually falls slightly. All right, so I just wanted to bring that up. Look at the high school, no college vote margin right there, 70 to 6.1. 70% in Pennsylvania, 67.2 of those who have some college or an associate's degree. Even the 4-year grads are giving majority support to Donald Trump, and the post-grad is a plurality, but it's a 15-point plurality. All right, moving on. What's interesting here is you can see in Michigan, even the advanced and post-grad degrees are just below a majority in the state of Michigan for Donald Trump. He holds his support. This is what is so making Trump so strong in Michigan right now. He's holding and increasing his support with non-college voters. This isn't just whites. 73.6%. Holy crap. Almost 2/3 of the vote with two-year degrees, some college voters. A majority, 51.3% with 4-year voters, 4-year college voters, and just under a majority with advanced and post-grads. Why does this matter? Well, because there are going to be more Republicans voting in a primary than Democrats. They're going to outvote Democrats. That's going to happen. At least it would if the election was held today, which I suspect it will hold. We'll see. But Trump is winning back some of the college people that left him in 2020. And you cannot do this well in Oakland County if you're not doing that. So we can see his appeal in the primary to these people. Why does this mean so much to me? In 2016, when everybody was talking about how Donald Trump's not going to perform well with the white educated voter, when he beat Cruz and Kasich and others in the primary, you could see places like Oakland County. He did much better than anyone expected him to do in these educated suburbs of Oakland and even parts of Macomb, which are more affluent. It was there, and you could see the appeal in the primary before the general ever came. That's what you're seeing right here. That is what you're seeing right here. Another state where we can see that happening, and I have not written up the press release on it yet, locals, you've had the crosstabs, you see the crosstabs, but let's take a look real quick at Ohio. We haven't put this out yet for public release, public consumption. Locals has had it, but here is the Ohio Republican presidential primary. Again, 60%. The Rust Belt is Trump country when it comes to the primary. Look at his high school vote share. 74.3%. That's 3/4 of the non-college vote is going to Donald Trump. 60% of the 2-year associate degrees are some college, a slight majority of the 4-year college graduate, and again, a strong 41.1% plurality that is about a 20-point lead. Even if you combine Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis, they don't get all that. They'll come to like 37%. Actually, it's 37 on the dot, and they would still trail them. And then you even if you beat them among those who have a post-grad, it's not anywhere near. You've heard me talk about this. You've heard other people talk about this. The beer, the wine track. The beer, the wine track. There is a beer track in the Republican primary. Those who drink beer and watch football. You're going to hang out with them during Thanksgiving tomorrow. It's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. You're going to watch football, no doubt, whatever it is you're going to do. You're going to enjoy a nice meal with your family. And you're going to put away a couple cold ones. That's the beer track. Salt of the earth, Republican voters, that's the beer track. That's where Trump is just crushing it. Numbers he never even got close to getting in 16. This is not remotely even comparable to say. This isn't comparable to anything. I have never seen this before. Not in what is supposed to be an open primary. Nobody else has either. And to make some ridiculous comparisons to like Adam Laxalt's lead in the general election, polling could be messed up. Give me a break. And then you have the wine track. Little bit more bougie, I think. Think Napa Valley Republican. In this case, in Ohio, you would certainly think about some more upscale areas that were revamped in Toledo. You would definitely think about the Cincinnati area, more bougie. There's some, Cincinnati burbs that are pretty wealthy, even though it is Ohio, and that compares to like the Ohio Valley, which is the wine track. I mean, the beer track, excuse me. Let me just give you this idea real quick, or let me just give you this. It's not an idea. Let me give you by region, and then I'm going to give you regional definitions because I really, really want you to understand how dominant this is. All right. This is not a normal situation. And then it's also, when I'm polling Ohio, it's nothing for Trump to be leading by like 8 in Ohio. That was true in 2020. So we saw that. There was nothing, huge or significant there. But when you're seeing these national swings, Emerson out just today, by the way, Trump +4. That's a big lead. And as Tom Bevan from Real Clear Politics pointed out, which I've been trying to explain to everybody, you guys quite a bit, I'm trying to beat this like a drum. It's not just his national margin. It's his vote share in some of these polls. Everyone has a little bit different of a methodology. And we could also, by the way, do what they do. And, Biden and Trump's actual vote shares would go a lot higher. We did not remove people who say they wouldn't vote. We did not remove people that were unlikely. We did show you comparisons. And you can go in all the crosstabs, by the way, on the demographic column. There, if you go to that drop down, you can see down the line when you get past all the basic and more detailed demographics, you can see some of the variables we made. One of them is likely voters versus unlikely voters. And you will see that, of course, unlikely voters, they're in the 30s. There is a massive number of voters in Ohio who say they're going to vote and don't normally vote. How massive? About 15%. It's huge. Huge. There are a lot of first-time voters, even primary voters. In the Iowa caucuses, there could be upwards of 45% who say that, this is my first time I'm going to a caucus. We saw that in 16. That happened. That's why a lot of people screwed up their polling, by the way. But that happened. In the Rust Belt states for primaries, not caucus states, the rest of the 5 of the big 6, we're seeing some really, some states are like, 10%, 8%. I'm a first-time primary voter. And that's kind of normal. And then some are huge, like 15, 17%. And I believe them. I got to tell you, I believe them. Which is why we're trying to cast a little bit larger of a net. We're doing what we always do this early with our own methodology. And if it, shrinks, it shrinks. The only thing we are going to change in the future, which I'm going to tell you, we're not going to give the third party generic option first. We're going to go with just head to heads and then undecideds. And we'll see if there's a huge number of undecideds. Then we'll add a generic third party. Then we'll add RFK. Then we'll add RFK, Stein, and West. And that's how we're going to move forward. As time goes on and I look and listen to the voters, I'm going to, we decide something may be worth looking into that wasn't before. All right. So I want to see that gap between undecided and a third party generic. I want to know whether or not that's big or not. All right. So just to give you an idea, the Cleveland area. So when you go through the crosstabs in the Ohio primary, and here, let me, can I show you this? Is it possible? I think it is possible to show you this. All right. Oh, yeah. Let's do it. Okay, cool. Yeah. All right. Let me show you this. I'm going to show you the back end of what we do when we're looking at when we're combining variables. All right. Just so you get an idea of what these regional definitions are. And of course, I could just tell you, but it would be cooler for you to look at. All right. So the exit polls, sometimes they'll call them something different each time. The regions of Ohio are traditionally, by Edison anyway, split up into 3 different areas, and they are defined as the Cleveland area, northern Ohio, western Ohio, Columbus area, the Cincinnati-Dayton area, and the Ohio Valley. The Cleveland area voted for Biden about 60-39, so about 20 points. The North voted for Trump by about 7, if you believe these exit polls I'm saying. The West went for Trump 72-26. The Columbus area went for Trump 54-45. All right, so remember that. That's 9 points. Remember that. Cincinnati-Dayton area went for Trump 52-47. That's the southwestern part of the state. And so there are, you have parts of the state that are obviously more Democrat and Biden was able to hold on to. For instance, it's not hitting me right now. It's killing me. All right, I'll come back to it though. And then you have surrounding counties that are more conservative. So some of it got pretty close throughout this election. And then you have the Ohio Valley, which voted for Trump about 70-30. All right, so this is how we define this. All right, so Cleveland area is Cuyahoga and Summit County. It represents about 15% of the vote. This poll is about 16. We're being very generous to Joe Biden. You have the North, which is Crawford, Defiance, Erie, Fulton, Gauga. I always butcher that. Ashland, Hancock, Henry, Huron, Knox, Lake, Lorraine, Lucas, Medina, Morrow, Ottawa. And by the way, that was for people, option 2 is people who were not in the state, validated, but not in the state. And we needed to check and make sure, a second layer, that they were really registered and eligible to vote in Ohio. Ottawa, Portage, Putnam, Richland, Sandusky, Seneca, Stark, Wayne, Williams, Wood, Wyandotte. And the West, Champaign, Clark, Dark, Allen, Fayette, Hardin, Logan, Marion. You get the picture, right? The Columbus area, Delaware, Fairfield, Franklin, Licking, Madison, Pickaway, and Union. Listen, this is the area where, hold on, this is the area that Karl Rove had a total meltdown over in the 2012 election when Megyn Kelly had to get up. They called Ohio for Barack Obama, and Rove flipped out. And it's like, there's a lot of suburban vote out there in Franklin County that's going to be, super. That's Romney vote. There's tens of thousands of them. It wasn't Romney vote. Romney didn't do as well as George Bush did in that area. Surprise, surprise. It didn't look the way it did in 2004 anymore 8 years later. So he had a meltdown. Megyn Kelly had to go over to the decision desk. It was a very embarrassing and unprofessional moment. All right, but for all of the talk about how terrible Trump does in areas where, for instance, George W. Bush just did so well, and all these other Republicans would do so much better, Trump only lost it by 9 points. I'll tell you what, I will trade 9 points in that area to win the Cincinnati-Dayton area, to do better in the Cleveland area, to romp it in the Ohio Valley, which Barack Obama did very well in. from Ashtabula to Mahoning, which is, by the way, parts of the Ohio Valley goes, I'm doing backwards, but if you're looking, wait, let me do this to you so you can see it right. So say Ohio was on the screen right now, okay? In the eastern part of Ohio, you're looking at the Ohio Valley, the counties from the Ohio Valley go from like this, like a little loop. All right, Ashtabula ends that tip of the Ohio Valley. And those are the traditional regional definitions when it comes to exit polling. Barack Obama did well there. He did. He did well in Mahoning. He did well in Trumbull. But it's, of course, another part. But Wood, this was on the west. There are counties that demographically were similar that he did well in. And Mitt Romney, even if he did marginally better in the suburbs of Franklin County, Columbus, it doesn't matter. It's not enough. And there are, by the way, in the Cincinnati, Dayton area, did I read this to you? I don't know. Clinton, Greene, Hamilton, Montgomery, Warren, and Butler. All right, so what am I going on and on about here? Trump is absolutely, like we saw some of these blue areas in Pennsylvania and in Michigan get a little bit more pro-Trump, and that has certainly helped him. All right, but if you look at the regional, and you should go and check out the primary graphic that I put up. Actually, I think maybe only Locals has that now. It's possible. I saw Larry share it though. Is this public? Does people let me know in the comment section whether or not you guys have this. But what's interesting is I'm just telling you, 8-point leads just to go. I'm coming full circle here. It is nothing for Trump to lead, Biden by a few points, 8 points, something like that. It's a little bit crazy to see Trump lead, anywhere depending on the matchup, whether it's head to head or whether it's, the 4-way, 5-way. He's leading Joe Biden by enormous margins. With the generic third party candidate, he leads by 13. With Kennedy and Kennedy alone, he's leading by 14. Now the last one. And with Kennedy, Stein, Cornell, West, the rest of them, he's leading by 15. Those are massive, massive, massive margins. And ironically, when we went back and looked at the 2020 votes specifically, it's almost identical to how people voted in 2020. It really is very, very close. A little bit more Trumpy, but nothing huge. It's about 52 Trump, 52 and change Trump, 43 Biden. It's a little like a point and change more Trumpy than it normally has been. So in other words, the shift is real. It's a 5-point shift in Ohio, just as we have seen 5-point shifts in Pennsylvania, right? Just as we saw a 7-point shift in Michigan, right? Depending on the matchup. If you were to do the entire ballot, which is, I think, the more fair way to do it because the ballot was big in 2020, right? Then you're talking about 2 to 3, so 5 points. So the lead is 3 points in Michigan. When you have everyone on the ballot, the lead for Trump is 3 points. So again, 5-point shift over to Trump to give Trump a lead. And then that's my little, yeah, I'll give it to her. Hold on. Oh, you got it? Okay. Sorry, it's like a request or something from my daughter. Yeah, so this is real. It's there. It's real. It's roughly, and by the way, it's roughly within the shift nationwide, right? The Emerson poll had Biden up by 5 in their final poll. Now they have Trump up by 4. It's a 9-point shift nationally. But in the Rust Belt state, I would expect we would see a little less dramatic shifts, except for in Minnesota where we are not, where we are seeing a massive shift. Now, it may be right on target when we look at how much Biden won Minnesota by 7 points. We polled him at 10, though. So I'm trying to do apples to apples here. No, we polled him at 10. Where is he at now? Right? So, it is what it is. All of this is very much within reason. And at this point, we should expect it. It's what we should expect. There was a poll out the other day. It was like Trump plus 5 in Ohio, right? And then you had Spencer at Emerson. I think it was like Trump plus 14. Spencer's Trump plus 14, again, is something like my eyebrow. I was like, I don't know about that. But it makes sense with the swings we're seeing nationally. It just does. So now, again, Trump will have led in the Ohio Valley. He did eke it out in the Cincinnati-Dayton area by 5 points. Remember that. I'm going to come back to that. And in the West, obviously, he won that big. He won that by over 40 points. I think it's like 45, 47 points. And in the North, he won 45-53. And he lost the Cleveland area where Cuyahoga is 60-39. All right. With that in mind, let me get up the region right now and let me give you the margins now. Okay. And if let's just do, because there wasn't a huge third party vote, but whatever. In the Cleveland area, Trump is already just about at the vote share he got. Biden has collapsed completely. He's barely getting 40% of the vote. So, I mean, it's like, and his approval ratings in the 30s, badly. I would expect those people, they're going to a generic, 14% of them go to a generic third party that's hurting Biden very badly. All right. So I would expect that, of course, to widen, but it doesn't matter because look at the rest of it. In the North, where Trump had led by 8, he is now up by, let me just do some real quick. He is now up by 17. In the West, where he led by huge margins, like almost 40-something points. That one's I'm not surprised Republicans can underperform in some rural areas, but he's at like a 25-point lead right now. So it's 11% of the vote statewide, so it doesn't really present in the overall margin as much. But Columbus area, right now, Trump actually has a lead in the Columbus area, but that's the area Karl Rove had a meltdown. He lost it by 9. He's currently, I believe he's up by 9. No, he's up by 6. So Columbus went from Biden plus 9 to now Trump plus 6. The Cincinnati-Dayton area, which Trump did win, he won it by 5. He is now winning by 13. Are you seeing a common theme here? I mean, the shift is rough. The shift to Trump is ballpark, in a certain range. And it fits with what we're seeing nationally. It fits what we're seeing in the specific region. It's within a certain range. In the Ohio Valley, he's just way ahead. And he started 30-point margin like he normally gets. And actually got a 40-point margin in 2020. But those very rural, again, areas, Republicans tend to underperform in. I think we had him at 58% in the Ohio Valley in 2020. It was like 58. And he wound up getting like 71, So again, though, that is a smaller share. It's another like 10 or 11% of the statewide vote. So, there's bigger sampling errors for that subgroup. But, looking at it, the Columbus area, the famous area of Karl Rove's meltdown, we're looking at a big change here. And even in the Cleveland area, of course, Biden's going to win it. He's going to win Cuyahoga. He's going to win the, Summit. I mean, those are the only two parts that make up the Cleveland area, the only 2 counties. So you would expect that. But he's running really, really poorly there. And Trump is already basically at his target. So that's the blue stronghold areas. And in the North, why is Trump doing better in the North? Well, it's not like he's getting much more of the vote share from areas that he had won pretty considerably. He's doing a little bit better in areas like Wood. But I always said this, when you look at a Trump map in Ohio, it looks like you have Cuyahoga in the Northeast, you have Toledo in the Northwest. Of course, you have Cincinnati in the Southwest, Columbus in the Central, and those are the little blue pockets when you're looking at a Trump map. But the difference with the Trump map is really in the North in the Ohio Valley. Of course, you can pick out little things here and there. But Trump really boxes Democrats in. He squeezes them in to Toledo. And the surrounding area is just red. And then in the Northeast, where Cuyahoga is, very much the same thing, right? Squeezes them and pushes them up against Cleveland, which is what Cuyahoga, right? In the Southwest, he does better in the burbs than people expect him to do. But, to me, it's really about that part of, where Toledo is, where Klinger from MASH used to be from, right? Klinger, he used to dress up in women's clothing to be sent home from the Korean War, right? Now, you're not declared a Section 8, you're given like a medal. That's Toledo, That's Toledo. Crazy people like Klinger, but good people. Mitt Romney got creamed. He got creamed there. Barack Obama was able to win Wood. That's how far out from Toledo he extended his victory in the north. And I believe Obama did carry Ashtabula. I mean, we know he did Mahoning. I believe he did. I'm like 95% sure. I'm sure he did. But, that's part of the Ohio Valley in the north where he was even able from Cuyahoga to expand out east. And that could come back despite what looks to be a ridiculous lead in the Buckeye State for Donald Trump. What makes this lead so strong could evaporate in a heartbeat if Republicans return to being the pre-Trump Republican Party. I mean, that's not a statement in support of Donald Trump. That is a statement of fact. It's an objective fact. And in the Trump era, if you make a statement like that, you're like, oh, you're saying that because you're a Trump supporter. It's sad that we're here. It really is. It really is. Because I'm telling you, nobody is going to do that well in southeastern Michigan. Nobody's going to box Democrats all the way up in the northwestern part of Ohio. They're not going to box them in with a red wall around Toledo. It's not going to happen. Even J.D. Vance, who won pretty significantly, it's a solid 6+ point win. You could see where somebody like Tim Ryan was able to hold off like that total Trump wave and what looks like a tsunami now. This isn't a wave in Ohio. This is a tsunami. And I just want to bring up, let's see if I can show you guys what this, because we haven't created it yet. I haven't finished creating it yet. But I want to see if I can show you how Ohio is currently looking before we're done with this map. And this is the general election. Just again, never will I ignore people in and around Youngstown. I will never do it. Again, because that is why I grossly underestimated his vote share in 2016. Here, you can see it well. I'm not going to change it to what you're used to seeing because I want you to understand what you're looking at. Normally, I will change it to ticks, and then you guys will be able to hover over it and you'll be able to see it. I'm not doing that this time. I'm going to leave this before. Normally I use this right here. Okay. All right. And the spikes will just make it easier for you to pinpoint individual interviews. This shows you concentration of support. Can you see that well? All right. The darker it gets here, they're grouping, basically it makes it darker by how many people are overlapped and picking the same person. All right. So when you see the darker shaded areas, what you're seeing is strength for Trump, more strength for Trump. All right. Again, look at in and around Toledo in the Northwest, even in Cuyahoga in and around Akron. All right. So because you have Summit here. This is one of two counties in that area Biden's going to be able to hold on to or does hold on to. That's it. And look at it right now. Look at Youngstown. Look at that. It's really remarkable. Here's Columbus, Franklin County and its suburbs. That's where Karl Rove had his meltdown. Look at it. Look at Dayton and Cincinnati. They'll call it the Cincinnati-Dayton area, or just Cincinnati. And it encompasses, of course, the rest of those counties in and around that area. And let me see if I can get you the 2020 map so you can see what it looks like. But this is not to be shrugged off. My point is that you can't have that kind of concentration of support unless you're winning back some of, and here, let me bring up the 2020 map. Unless you're winning back some of that suburban white vote that, we talk so much about that didn't like you, maybe say, I'd rather vote for Biden because Biden is more, he's decent Biden. You remember the charade. All right. Here's Toledo. Lucas, this is what a Trump map looks like. You know, like I said, they'll put Toledo inside of a red wall. That's what it looks like when Donald Trump is on the ballot. Here's Cuyahoga, which of course is the Ohio blue stronghold. And then here's Summit County, which is those two we were just looking at. And yet the concentration of Trump vote in and around this area would suggest that Trump would do better in Summit this time. Right? At Cuyahoga, he lost by 34 points. That is the blue stronghold. But south of that in Summit, he barely lost by 10, he lost it by 9.5 points. I was going to say barely 10 points, but it was about 9.5 points. That would seem to suggest that Summit would be much closer this time. Biden may get a 3-point win out of this or a 5-point win out of Summit. You can't do that unless you're doing better with people who have college degrees. It's very different here in the North than it is in the Ohio River Valley, which is basically the Ohio River Valley goes all the way. Claremont is technically part of the Ohio River Valley, but there are parts of Claremont that certainly are. You have Claremont all the way up to Ashtabula. It goes like this, like hooks in like this. That's the Ohio River Valley. And this, Republicans take for granted right now as just being Republican areas. That's not really true. I mean, Barack Obama won Ashtabula. Barack Obama won Trumbull. Look at the margins now. Mahoning, he won. Or no, maybe he didn't win Ashtabula. I'm thinking Trumbull, he did. Mahoning, he did. So he was able to extend all the way out. Probably did win Portage too. I'd have to go back and look. That's interesting. Do I have the map right here for Ohio? I may. I do. Okay. Yep, there it is. So as you can see on the left, Mitt Romney lost Ashtabula, which now votes for Donald Trump, 61-37. He lost Trumbull, which votes for Trump, 55-44. He lost Mahoning, which is a very close, very, very close battleground county in Youngstown area. Trump wins it. He won it by 2. I believe he beat Clinton by a little bit more than that. But yeah. You can see Romney actually even lost Portage, which Trump carries by 12, 13 points. Summit was an even bigger, you can see it's slightly darker, it was an even bigger Democratic win with Barack Obama. And of course, Barack Obama took Stark, which Trump wins now by 20 points. Up to the northwest, you can see Toledo. No red wall. Barack Obama won Wood. Barack Obama won Ottawa, which, by the way, last time Trump took Wood by over 7 points. Ottawa, he took by 23 points. Sandusky, he took by almost 30 points. These are all counties Mitt Romney lost. Erie, Trump takes by about 12 points. Mitt Romney lost it. I mean, it's a big deal. I mean, I know I'm like beating a dead horse here, but I don't think people understand. I really don't think they understand how significant these shifts are, and you can't expect them. And by the way, look where in the Ohio Valley, Laura, Romney even won. He barely won them. You see that? Barely. Light pink means he barely won. The darker, the larger the margin. Mitt Romney was putting up 5 to 10 point wins all over the Ohio Valley. That blows. And that will return because people will see the party like that. Look, even Noble, one area, Trump wins Noble 81. He wins. Noble is that county in the Ohio Valley, almost central eastern part of the state. You can see it's darker than in Mitt Romney's map. It's darker than the surrounding pink counties in the Ohio River Valley. Romney won that pretty decently. He got about 60+% of the vote. Trump gets 81% of the vote. 81. We got some good questions in the queue. That's great. I'm going to take a real quick break. Throw your questions and I will answer them. Throw them into the chats. Laura will grab them, throw them up for me so I can get them to you. I hope this is like powerful enough for everybody to truly understand what they're looking at.
Just real quick, guys, when you do ask a question, could you please put my name in it because it highlights it and I can grab it quicker?
Yeah, just like at her, and that'll be easier for her to see. All right, cool. Yep, we'll be right back, and we're gonna do another little clip. I think I have time to do one more clip, which is I haven't seen this movie in a while, and I was thinking about holiday clips that I wanted, and I'm like, oh, I was like Googling and looking. I'm like, oh my God, it's been so long. Look how young Robert Downey Jr. was here. Just a great cast as well, like Santa for Woman, of course. But we're gonna run this. Happy Thanksgiving, folks. Stay tuned. We'll be back.
Anymore. Right. This goddamn bird, I'm trying to get an angle. So would you spot weld this, Mom?
Mommy! Sit down. Baking soda. Baking soda.
You goddamn bastard!
Baking soda. Baking soda.
You goddamn bastard!
Oh, shit. Adele. Look at one's come off. Adele.
It's okay.
Oh, it's right. Look at my tie. It's okay. Joanne, look at this. Look at your father's tie. It's useless. I know how you feel.
You don't know how I feel, and in my opinion, you don't even care.
Well, opinions are like assholes, honey. Everybody's got one, and everybody thinks everybody else stinks.
Henry, for Christ's sake.
It's been a complete holiday nightmare. I have to go.
Oh, God, Joanne. Nice drama queen energy. Can you just set it down so it gets better for once instead of worse?
You're calling me a drama queen, Mr. Pervert?
Dad, put the camera down. Not now.
Put the
Mom,
camera.
Dad, wait. I mean, try to think back like 100 years ago, okay? I'm dead serious. Because I'm getting a feeling from this picture back when you guys came back from the hospital with Joanne.
Tommy.
Now, she was just a tiny little baby, right? So anything could happen. Is it possible there was like a baboon family there in the hospital and that there was a switch up, a little mix up? And then maybe you got the wrong one? Because I'm not kidding about this.
You little sleazy.
Aw, jeez.
Claudia, it's not even worth it.
No, you're calling me a freak.
No, I'm calling you a product of baboon lovin'. It's a distinction.
Oh.
God rest his soul. Opinions are like holes,
Okay.
honey. I know, I believed it. Everyone has one. And everyone else thinks everyone has one, and everyone thinks everyone else's stinks. So funny. What a classic line. That's family drama for you. You know, I'm wishing you a funnier, better Thanksgiving than that. But God Almighty, that was great. All right, let's take a real quick break from our sponsor. We'll come back to your question. All right, listen, right now, happy Thanksgiving. Subscriptions to Jam and Bean, our friends and patriots over at Jam and Bean, JAMNBean.com. Right now, if you go to Jam and Bean, folks, and you get yourself a new subscription, use the promo code TPP40 at checkout. All right, they got custom gift boxes. There they are, right there on the screen. Perfect for the holidays. 40% off that subscription right off the rip. Plus, when it renews every month, you will still get 10% off that subscription fee. So again, go to jamandbean.com, use the promo code TPP40 at checkout. They have Michigan maple syrup, which is incredible. And this is definitely, you have some time with your family this season. Yeah, everyone's going to have a break here and there. Maybe you wake up, you make the kids pancakes. They'll love it. Mine did. And you have some nice time with the family, along with a great deal from our friends and patriots over at Jam and Bean. Michigan based, by the way. Speaking of the battleground state of Michigan, the Wolverine battleground. That's where they are. COVID Patriots. All right, Laura, let's get to some of our questions, shall we? It's 12:57.
Yeah.
I figured you'd early jump on it because I know we have to make this a quicker show. All right.
Yes.
All right. Question. What do you think of this poll result? Matt Gaetz at 21% approval rating in Florida after the House Speaker turmoil. Just the news. I didn't see the poll. I'd have to check it out. Outside of his district, maybe. I mean, I'll tell you, Matt could have come across a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? His district is with him. I'm telling you, his district is with him right now. I've polled it before. Things could have changed. Maybe. But I suspect what'll happen is Republicans will be happier with Mike Johnson, regardless of whether or not, they get everything they want. They're not going to get everything they want. But look, the January 6 tapes have now been released. There have been promises that have been kept by Mike Johnson, especially as we get into the Trumpy primaries and general election. Because I'm not, listen, guys, I'm not trying to be, a schmuck here. But we have to start thinking about this now from a general election perspective. All right. The significance of primary results to me when I'm polling is really just how many people is Trump bringing into this process, how many new people, and how much better is he doing with some of the voters that he wasn't doing well with 6 months ago. That's really it for me. Like, that's why I was pointing out how much better he was doing with postgrads in a state like Michigan. That's a big deal. I'm really not going to go down this rabbit hole of possibilities that even if there was some Iowa miracle that they would be able to stop him elsewhere. The fact of the matter is, Bob Vanderplatz's endorsement of Ron DeSantis is rather appropriate because Bob Vanderplatz is he's the endorsement that kills campaigns. That's what happens in the modern era. Even if you can get that endorsement and win Iowa with it, it kills you in New Hampshire. It kills you in South Carolina. It definitely kills you in the Rust Belt, where Republican voters are very, very different than the rest of the Iowa caucus. Even if you had a primary in Iowa instead of a caucus, you would get a very, very different result. A caucus is different. It's a different animal. And you're going to have a certain, there are different people who show up for them. And it's very tough. I mean, come hail, come rain, come sleet, come snow. It's cold as hell. Anyone who's ever been to covered a caucus or been to an Iowa caucus, it is not an easy thing to get people to go and do. So it's very different than just going and, grabbing a ballot real quick or even voting by mail. It's very easy to vote in a primary now. It's an event to go to a caucus. It produces an electorate that may not be, and typically is not, a matter of fact, is not in the modern era conducive to winning a general election. All right. So that's just the reality of it. So I'm not going to entertain, this supposed horse race. I mean, I just showed you up and down what the demographics are, and I'm sure there are more questions, and I'll pop them up on the screen again. But I'm not going to, there is no horse race. I picked that kind of chart visualization for a reason, show you what kind of slice of pie. As we get more into that and get in a state like Florida where Trump has a 40-point lead, you're going to see Matt Gaetz with him a lot more. Like, these early polls showing Casey DeSantis beating Matt Gaetz for the Republican nomination for governor is just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's a cute poll right now, but it's not going to happen. I'd have to review that poll, but I would not be surprised if he did get hurt. 21% sounds a little bit low to me. Fact of the matter is, he's just a congressman. And outside of a congressman's own district, even in their own home state, they don't have much support base. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was a ton of undecideds in that poll and a ton of somewhats. Somewhats meaning, I don't really know. So I'm not really saying. A lot of people don't like to say in favorability polls, they don't know who the hell you're talking about. Even when they're a high-profile congressman, they don't like to say it. So, yeah, I'd have to look at it, but I wouldn't, if I was Matt Gaetz, I wouldn't be panicking over it. That's for sure. All right, P-Dub. Great show with Roger Stone yesterday, Rich. Thank you. You know what? I'll tell you, I got some feedback from Roger's interview, and I got to be honest. Roger is a lot more sophisticated with polling than I think people understand. And it's rare when I get to do an interview where the host gives me the time and leeway to get more into the weeds, not just on polling results, but on polling itself. Because the entire idea behind Inside the Numbers is to try to get you, the consumers, the people, to understand polls better, how to read them, what to take from them, what to draw from them. There is this fiction out there that polls are meant to be delivered with pinpoint accuracy. Sampling errors mean nothing. Things don't ever change. The pollster doesn't have an influence on the results. Of course they do. All of that matters. I think we got a little bit too spoiled in the golden age of Gallup, who used to poll really accurately, for the national popular vote anyway. And Roger and I had a chance to talk about, the Reader's Digest. He brought up, how polling was done before. There's one other poll he brought up that was like along with Gallup. That was it. I mean, that was it. I can't believe I'm forgetting the name right now. But we talked about these. Things were very, very, very different back then. Now, the zone is being flooded with polls, right? And Roger said something that you've heard me personally. I've been listening, waiting in the queue, and you've heard me personally say this. I heard Roger say it while I was waiting for him to bring me on. All polls are not equal. That's 100% true. Even 40 years ago, 50 years ago, if the media did a poll, it was taken with a grain of salt. Gallup was the gold standard. The popular vote was it. That was it. Things are very different now. Now we have everyone and their mother polling. They're not delivering the results the way they should. Very few people, Spencer Kimball being one of them, out there going, it is important to note that sampling errors for subgroups are higher. It is important. Like, there are a few of us doing this, and that's a real tragedy. And I would note, too, on the Stone Show, we got a little bit into it, but not enough. But because there's only so much time, we got into a lot of stuff. I really was impressed with how Roger Stone hosts the show. How could I put this? Well, you know what? That's going to open up a whole other can of worms. But he did. I was happy with the show too. I'll leave it at that. Well, if I have time to come back to what I want to get into, we will. But that's going to open another door. If I walk through it, I'm going to be talking about it for 10 minutes. All right. But do you think the Michigan poll lead, and this is Elon on locals, do you think the Michigan poll lead is due to interdemocratic tensions arising from the Israel-Hamas war? If so, could we expect this margin of victory to be temporary? What a great question. Okay, great question. Because I do think we are seeing base fracture for Joe Biden. Now, there's a few reasons. And let me pull up the poll in Michigan to go over this. Do I have the graph or do I have to go back to the press release? Yeah, let's just go back to the press release. That's okay. Because I think that there are some areas where you're going to see people return to the fold for Joe Biden or Elon potentially not vote. And that would hurt Joe Biden anyway. All right. I don't think it's temporary because he's suffering from base fracture from multiple angles, multiple groups. There is certainly a non-white, younger, leftist base fracture that is hurting Joe Biden. But due to this Israel-Hamas situation, they want him to just basically completely forsake, Israel for Hamas. There is a huge, rather radical population in areas like Dearborn, Michigan, for instance. Okay, but I don't think the lead will be temporary, and I think it would be. This is too big. I will say that. I could be wrong. Maybe Trump does win Michigan by 3 to 5 points. Maybe he does. I just would have expected a lot closer of a race and like a 2-point win, something that's very, very close. You're not going to be, you're going to be, on the edge of your seat for a little bit. But then if you dig into it, you can see in the primary, for instance, Joe Biden still, when it comes to self-identified liberals, actually performing the best among them. You have 16% who are undecided, 7 who say someone else, but that's nothing compared to moderates. 20% of moderates say they're undecided and 12% say that they're for someone else. If you go to the head-to-head, self-identified liberals, 10% are voting for Donald Trump. That's about what happened to Hillary Clinton. Another third-party candidate gets 12%. That's less than moderate, about on par with conservatives. Only 10% of conservatives say they would vote for a generic third party. And less than 4% say they would not vote. 3.6. 2% of conservatives say they would not vote. I think Elon, his danger there is within that number, really. All right. I do think that undecided number is going to go back to him. I think that if you look at by age, for instance, there is this weird thing going on by age. And I think there's certainly some role that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is playing in that. And I do think that at the end of the day, they're going to go back to him. Here's the problem. Trump is still doing much better with some of those voters than he did in the past. So among 25 to 29-year-olds, Biden still leads by 7, but Trump is still in the 30s. Trump is almost at 40 with 18 to 24-year-olds. Even if, that 8% of 18 to 24-year-olds, goes for Joe Biden and Trump winds up not getting a single one of them, Trump's only going to lose them by single-digit points. That's it. Now, he's going to lose 25 to 29 by more, but there's not many more of them that were undecided. I do see that lead shrinking. I do. I'm just not convinced that it's necessarily temporary and that Joe Biden is going to reclaim a lead in Michigan at some point. There's another thing going on in Michigan I think is also really important. Joe Biden was doing a lot better with seniors in Michigan in 2020 than he is now. In fact, we could see Trump doing better with younger voters and core working voters in 2016. That's what made, in our polling, that's what always did make Michigan close. Like I said, Hillary at one point had a 3-point lead. But something weird happened. Seniors were more undecided than even younger voters at some points, which never happens. That's very weird. And those who were undecided eventually broke for Trump, and he edged out Biden with seniors. Now, I was like, well, so what, Rich? Seniors vote Republican. Not in Michigan. Not in Michigan, they don't. And actually, frankly, over time, this is part of the reason I think why Democrats are doing better in special elections, low turnout elections. They're doing better with older people. Why? Because the 60s generation is getting older now. They're becoming seniors. They are seniors. Like the most radical left-wing generation is now part of the senior group. Whereas before that, there was still some super seniors that were even older than that, hated that. Or not even that they were that generation. They were living in the result, the product of that generation, the changes that occurred, social changes and institutional changes that occurred because of the 60s movements and the 70s, of course, dovetailed off of that. This is not happening right now in Michigan. If you look at super seniors, Trump leads Biden 56 to 29. Among those who are 65 to 74, Trump leads 46 to 40. He's got a 6-point lead. So to me, it's a big deal. Biden had clawed back a bunch of them that Hillary didn't get, and now he's lost them again. Biden leads with a single age group, outside of that younger age cohort, by the way. But he leads with a single age group, 50 to 64, which is a very big, it is the biggest. It's not bad for Joe Biden because it's the biggest chunk of the electorate. But he's only leading by 2 points. That's it. It's very close. And among 40 to 49, that's a group that is, again, core working group. Trump did really well with 30 to 39, 40 to 49 against Hillary. He did well with the 40 to 49 against Biden, too. He's just friggin' trouncing Biden with them now. 13 points with the 40 to 49. So I think that base fracture is a problem for Joe Biden. I do think it means that this size of a lead is temporary. I do. I understand what the Detroit Free Press also found a 5-point lead, which I thought was bullshit. I'm not going to be honest. I got to be honest with you. I did not think we were going to find a 5-point lead. I thought Detroit Free Press was just off their rocker. And just so you know, they had Hillary up. Their final was Hillary +4. She obviously lost, but their sampling error is 4%. So it's really close. And their final for Biden was Biden +6. And they were 4 points off there as well. So I just thought it was a weird result. It's totally nonsense. But here we are. here we are. So yeah, I do think that a lot of those younger voters will either just stay home, Elon, or they won't vote. And actually, I'm over here talking and I'm thinking I'm showing you the crosstabs, but I'm not. I'll pop them up while I read the other questions, just so you guys know what I was looking at while I was talking to you. But yeah, I do think we're going to see that lead shrink. I just don't think it's going to. I don't think it's going to be enough right now for Biden to reclaim the lead. It's interesting, right? From locals, Sydney. What do you think about the poll showing that if convicted, Trump does worse against Biden? Sydney, that's a fair question. I mean, we've answered this. I imagine I'll be asked this again in the future. Not even Barack Obama's own pollster believes those results. Guy from the AP himself, one of the polling editors at the AP, said either those voters are lying to the pollster, or they're lying to us, or they're lying to themselves. That's not going to happen. And I do think that's actually the case. First of all, there's the very real possibility that none of these cases he's even convicted. You do have the DC case with that radical communist Chuckin, I call her. But the other ones appear to be getting pushed back. The court in Florida does not appear willing right away to just, outwardly extend it, but you could see she was very uncomfortable with the idea of the decision by the court, impacting the presidential election. Even Fannie Willis has now said that with Georgia, she doesn't expect, this to be wrapped up. It could go a lot longer. The nature of these cases usually take years to be resolved. So this will be, I would say, the DC Jack Smith case will be in the Court of Appeals by then, and there will be messaging wars going on, about whether or not they're valid. And Trump's going to have cameras in some of the in the courtroom in Georgia. The media's suing to get them in other courtrooms. They joined Trump on the lawsuit. It's such a bias injecting poll. We've seen it before. What if Trump is impeached by the House? Would you vote for him for re-election? And like 20% of Republicans say they would never vote for Trump for re-election if he's impeached by the House. That never happened, right? Over Russia, we heard so much of the same thing. If you were to poll people and say, hey, if Joe Biden is impeached by the House and because he took bribes from China, there would be 20% of Democrats who say they wouldn't vote for Joe Biden either. But guess what? They're going to vote for Joe Biden. And when we get closer to the election, you're going to see it. I just don't believe we live in such a polarized country. That is a terribly bias injecting question, especially if you only ask it without asking about Biden. Because, of course, that's the real world. Presidential elections are A/B tests. Mark Penn wrote an article about this, I think it was earlier this week. And he said, you know what, all that is noise. And when we get to it, voters are simply going to ask themselves, who is going to do better for me? And if the economy is still in bad shape, if real wages are still being squashed, if the world is still on fire, they're not going to care about a conviction in a kangaroo court. We've seen this before. We have never seen it at the level of the American presidency. Oh, yeah, I like this one. Cleveland rocks. Lake. Galgoa. I can't remember how to say that. Somebody from Ohio was like, hey, let me tell you. Ashtabula, Portage, were all Republican back in the 60s and 70s. Yeah, we're going to actually get to that pretty soon in the book club, The Emerging Republican Majority, reading by Kevin Phillips. We're going to be getting to the Midwest and the Rust Belts pretty soon. We're still in the Northeast. It's such a big chapter because you have to learn all about the history of the Northeast. So when you find out about the transplants, the immigrants from Northeast to the Midwest and out West, you'll learn more about the background of those votes at ethnicity wise and voting trends by ethnicity. Yeah, I mean, I say this a lot. We're getting into the holidays and I use this example all the time to give people an idea. Like Vermont used to be super Republican, and people who are reading the book with us right now, they know that. And I remember Danny Kaye and Bing Crosby and White Christmas. And Danny Kaye is trying to convince Bing Crosby to go to Vermont because, of course, he wants to follow the girls, And Bing Crosby, he's hiding it from Bing Crosby. And, Bing Crosby's like, what the hell is in Vermont at this time of year except for snow? and Republicans. So it's just like now, God, it's got a socialist senator, right? It's totally, totally different. Time moves on. There is nothing consistent about political coalitions except that they consistently change. The only thing consistent about political coalitions is that they consistently change. That is my long-term quote I've been using for a long time. Monroe County's population is around 150K. Why is that county a key county in Michigan? Whoa, great question. Let's pull it up. Bum, ba, bum. Great question. Let's go to the 2020 map. Okay. Well, first of all, demographically is the answer, is part of that answer. Obviously, how someone does in Monroe is going to give you some insight into how they're going to do in the rest of the southeastern part of the state. All right. Here's Monroe, 87,148 votes cast in 2020. Trump won it 60.5 to 37.8, and he netted 30,000 votes. Okay. This is why it's important. Let's get to it. Let's pop this up. And I'm going to show you the equation I was talking about in real time here. All right. Here's Oakland. Huge number of votes, 770,000. And Joe Biden netted about 100,000 votes plus, a little over 100,000 votes. Here's Macomb next door. About 500,000 votes. Trump won it this time, but he won it 53.4 to 45.3. That wasn't enough. I think he won it by 12 against Hillary Clinton, something like that. We're now way north of that. So even because sampling errors for subgroups are higher, let's say I'm off. And, this is about 20-point margin. And that's why I can't wait to get in with multi-level regression analysis with you guys, because that'll help iron out some of the noise from smaller sample sizes. All right. So we'll be able to, from what we gathered from Monroe, what we gathered from Macomb, what we gathered from Oakland, be able to tell us a lot more about voters we did not speak to. All right. But it is important to note that the people who voted for it in 2020, in every state we've done so far, I mean, we're well within like a point or two of the actual result. So it tells us that we're really talking to a representative group of people. All right, so here's Macomb, though, and Trump netted 40,000 votes. All right, so combined, he netted about 70,000. That wasn't enough, right? Because you're getting 100,000 deficit out of Oakland. If he closes that in Oakland, right now, Oakland is only 5 points for Biden. That's it. That's huge. If he can close that, get it down to 70,000 and then win those two by that same margin, he would have essentially had wiped out Oakland's deficit, the deficit he had it coming out of Oakland County. All right. And then you have Wayne, which is going to give Democrats about 300,000 votes. And you need to do so well in the rest of the state that you net Wayne plus the sum that you're going to lose. Here's like 300 votes here, right? By the way, Saginaw went for Trump in 2016. Saginaw's going back to Trump at this rate right now. Genesee, right? That's about a 20,000 vote margin. You got some here. Muskegon, that's going back to Trump. Kent may not. I'm not sure yet. Kent may be like 50-50. But Muskegon would go back. Kalamazoo is a Democratic area. So you have to do so well, and you have to flip back some of the rest of these. Leelanau would probably go back to Trump, but it's close. And you need to take all of the rest of your performance to basically overcome Wayne plus a little bit more. That's how you win Michigan. The easiest way to do it is to win Macomb and Monroe by such a large margin combined. You're wiping out Oakland. Now, if you could tighten Oakland too, which Trump is doing right now, if you tighten Oakland too and win these Macomb and Monroe by bigger margins, then you're going to come out looking pretty. Because you're not just going to wipe out. Oh, I just got a text I forgot about. You're not just going to wipe out the net coming out of Oakland. You're going to come out ahead, which will give you a bit of a buffer because we do have Washtenaw next door to Wayne County, which Democrats net another 100,000 votes out of. So you need to do that in order to win. So look at Leelanau, for instance. About it's little bit smaller of a county than Monroe, but the margin is just not there, right? So even if you were to win, Lenawee, if you win Lenawee by a bigger margin, it's still not going to net you, more than like 14,000 votes if you're a Republican. Trump got 11. That's pretty big of himself, So let's say you win it by a little bit more, larger of a margin, you get 13,000 or something. That it's every little bit helps, of course, but really Monroe is the place where you can do some real damage as a Republican, and you can take a chunk to help offset what you need, because you got crushed in Oakland. Oakland it wasn't always like this. All right. So that's important to note. It used to be a lot closer. But over the years, parts of Wayne County started seeping into South Oakland, Southern Oakland County. And that is now what is going on. The Detroit suburbs have extended out into Oakland. Ironically, some of where we saw Trump doing better, and if you go and look at the map, you'll see it, is in South Oakland. It's because of that non-white vote. So you have some African Americans and other non-whites that are a little bit more, well, I would not say they're well off, but they're not like in the ghetto, of Detroit, and they're not in the inner city of Detroit. So they have a little bit more political maturization underneath their cap. And that is a prime target for Donald Trump as far as the non-white vote. Very, very. Yeah, so it's a great question. It doesn't seem like a big county, but it matters. And look at what Tudor Dixon did. I mean, she barely was able to get, 50 something percent. I think she got 55 or something percent. That's terrible. You really got to run it up in Oakland County. In Monroe County, excuse me. You really got to run it up. And Trump, that's what Trump does. It looks like he'd probably get a little bit more this time. I think he'd be probably in the low to mid 60s, which is unheard of, but that's what it does suggest. And then Macomb, he would go much, much closer back to where he was in 16. You get 58% in Macomb, you're really looking good. You get 58% Macomb, you get, 63% in Monroe, you're on your way. You are on your way. And again, it doesn't hurt to kill that margin in Oakland. And truth is, if you do, because let me just give you give me 1 second. If you do, then chances are, because of similar demographics, you're going to do better in parts of Oakland, especially Eastern Oakland, anyway. So it would help your performance in Oakland, or theoretically it should. You would expect it to, but oops, that's Pennsylvania. Whoops. Hold on. I just want to give you guys the difference in the margin so you can understand. So Monroe in 2016, Trump was actually a little lower, he was a little lower at 58. I thought it was a little higher than that, but Clinton was at 36. Biden got 39. All right. In Oakland, Clinton only won it by 52 to 43. Biden won it 56.4 to 42.3. So again, tiny little, you'd be surprised how much tiny little margins really have a huge impact. And Trump won Macomb in, actually, I thought it was more than that. I guess not. He won it 53.6 to 42.1. Again, Trump he came down a little bit. Biden went up a little bit. And that's, what it takes, really is. Wayne did give Joe Biden more votes than it gave, I believe, Hillary Clinton. And let me just check how many. Hillary Clinton got slightly less than 300,000. Joe Biden got slightly more. And again, there's counties all over the place where you're going to see, because of how he's doing, you're going to see Biden did 2 points better here, 3 points better there, 2 points. When a race is decided by 10,000 votes, that's it. That's the ball game. Would I have someone on the show talk about the precinct strategy? For your benefit? Or is this like, somebody you want on the show? I wouldn't mind. We've had John O'Shea on, who's running for Congress in Texas 12. He's in the precinct strategy. He's part of it. He's a precinct captain. I keep getting ideas. The same person. Ideas, not money. Have you polled Illinois? Will you? Congressional seats 6, 11, 14, and 17. It's funny. I just got asked by 2 media outlets this morning whether or not the Rust Belt poll is going to expand to Illinois. I don't think so. And I'm going to tell you why. In 2022, a mistake I made, which I gave ammunition to my critics, I wanted to poll everywhere instead of focusing on what we could have focused on to the point where we could have had final polls for everything. So now I have pricks who like to criticize and smear and twist the truth and twist records, pretending like a poll that was conducted in April or August or whatever is like your final poll. And it's very hard to defend against. So I would like to stick to the competitive states we know are going to decide the election, and within a budget that is reasonable enough that we could keep polling it until the end. It is possible, by the way, I don't want to say any names, but it is possible I do get a media contract. We'll just have to wait and see. If that's the case, then I'll probably stop polling nationally for inside the numbers. We'll stick to more states because I think they're going to want to just do, the national polling. I don't know. We'll see. But what I don't want to do is what a lot of other pollsters do. I don't think it's right. Now, some of it, candidate related is not right at all, which we will not be. But I almost feel like it's double dipping. Like, I feel like what YouGov does is double dipping. You have several YouGov affiliated polls come out in the same week. Different sponsorships. I feel like it's the same data set. I don't know how it could not be. And they're getting paid more than once for the same damn data set. Sorry, I said it out loud. Where is Biden's floor? Oof. If the full economic downturn, and this is Lamont Cranston on Locals, if the full economic downturn happens next year, who rides or dies with Biden, considering Trump's appealing to Dem voting groups? Man, I think some of that, depends on the Republicans themselves. Are they going to do what they did in 2016 and fracture the coalition? Or are they going to stop being stupid? Understand, speaking of riding and dying, understand that you all ride and die together. And you're much stronger when you ride together. Kelly Ayotte probably still would have been a senator if she didn't do what she did. Kelly Ayotte lost because she's a coward and a neocon crook who decided to forsake her own nominee under the banner, by the way, of some kind of bogus moral objection to him. All of that is totally fake. Nobody really objects to Donald Trump on moral grounds. They're full of crap. Even the Iowa campaign killer caucus, they're so full of crap. This one is airing the gruesome details of her divorce, having mental breakdowns on Facebook in front of everybody, fabricating discussions she had with her pastor. Her pastor has to go on Facebook and say, I think you need to go to a psychiatrist because this never happened. The husband is like, oh my God, somebody at the clerk's office, please draw the divorce papers up faster. I can't sign fast enough. This woman is a nutcase. I will tell you, and I'll be real honest with you guys, man. I agree with what a lot of Cernovich says. The biggest Christian phonies I've met in this country in my life, a lot of them are these pretenders. The Jimmy Swaggart types, they're so full of crap. It's not even funny. Now, I defend. First of all, I consider myself a Protestant now, born again Christian. I do. I was raised Roman Catholic. I was baptized Greek Orthodox. I was certainly raised Roman Catholic. But now I don't consider myself a Catholic. So I'm not over here attacking some other group. I am in this group, or I'm not a very good one, but I like to think I am. And the biggest frauds are those people. They are all about the pro-life grift, the power that comes with it, the power that comes with, my faith group gets behind this candidate. I really get this. I have a say in that. My stature rises. My congregation grows. Guess what grows with the congregation? My tithes grow. And they all just end up being the biggest frauds. Jimmy Swaggart wasn't even the first major televangelist to have a scandal. There was a woman out in California many, many years before in the 50s. This is a woman who faked being kidnapped by Mexicans. She said she was kidnapped by Mexicans and held in Mexico for days and days and days. You know what really happened? She was nailing some dude she worked with behind her husband's back. Somebody caught her, or she thought somebody was going to catch her, so she faked a disappearing act so she could pretend like she wasn't really there in the hotel when they thought they saw her. Police and everything, they're searching all up and down with a waste of resources. Telling you, the biggest pretenders come from that group. Anyway, I don't know where his floor is. It depends. After Ohio, I never thought I would poll a presidential candidate at 30% in Ohio. For those who have not seen the general election numbers yet, it's ugly. Ugly. Like Donald Trump would probably beat Joe Biden 54-40. If all of the undecideds were to break his way, he got some of his base back. In Ohio, Biden's going down like 54-40, something like that. Like that would be the estimate. That is gruesome. I never thought any presidential candidate on the Republican or Democratic side could end up in the 30s in the state of Ohio. Yet there he is. His approval rating's 35%. There's about 5% of people who say they somewhat approve of him, or I would say there's a group of somewhat approves. They make up almost about 5% of the total vote who say that they don't really know if they want to vote for him, even though they somewhat approve of him. Hell, some of the somewhat approves vote for Trump, are voting for Trump. It is an ugly, ugly situation for Joe Biden in Ohio. Nationally, I think it's very difficult to get Joe Biden below 38% approval nationwide. I think that the Emerson poll, which I should bring up actually, I think the Emerson poll is probably pretty close to being right on him being close to his floor. It goes to the question about, well, what if Donald Trump is convicted? We're a polarized country. It's like, what if if there's something else, Lamont, that happens, a major economic catastrophe or something like that, then maybe, possibly he falls below that kind of 38, 36%. I just don't know. I don't know. It's tough. So here's Trump's hypothetical ballot test. You can see in Emerson's polling for the last year and a half, Trump has led far more than he has trailed in the Emerson poll. Again, the Emerson poll had Biden up by 5 in their final poll. We had Biden up by 4 in our final poll. We were very, very, very close to right. Here's his approval rating, though. Biden's approval rating. You can see what's the floor here in the Emerson poll. The same floor it is in our poll, 38%. That is, I believe, the lowest we have ever found Joe Biden. It's just tough to get a president below those numbers in the era we're living in. Right? That's why when the polls with Trump, like 35% approval rating, I would just call total BS on. That was never going to happen. Let me read this real quick as we get onto it, though, because I'm looking ahead to some of the questions, and some of this has a lot to do with those, these different groups. Very similar, and I think I'm just going to read this now, and that'll cover some of what other people asked. Notable shifts in comparison to last year's poll. All right. Biden went from being plus 61 among African-American voters last year to only plus 47 now, 15-point shift. Plus 14 among Hispanic voters to only plus 3 now, 11-point shift. Trump trails Biden by 3 among Hispanic voters. That's it. He went from plus 12 among voters under 50 to negative 1. And he went from plus 18 among 4-year college graduates to only plus 2, a 16-point shift. By the way, go look at Michigan. Go look at Ohio. You will see we are seeing the same thing. 4-year college voters are basically tied right now. That is a big deal. And that's how, going back to the question about Monroe and Michigan, that's how that damage is being done in places like Oakland. All right. With Kerry Lake making inroads with establishment McCain Republicans, do you think the higher ups tell the Maricopa McCain machine to get in line and not interfere? That's probably the thought pattern behind that. It's probably the thinking behind that. That's a really good question. I think that you're probably close to being on with that. But yeah, here, let me just highlight that for such a big deal. Hold on. All right. What's the schedule looking like for the remaining Rust Belt states? ASAP. I know it's Thanksgiving, but we'll probably drop. I want to get Iowa out. I think the Iowa caucus poll is going to be important. Don't you guys? I think we need to get that out. What else? I think, Minnesota or something could kind of drop, like when we don't have a show, although that's going to be dropping with a splash, man. I would like to say Wisconsin until people are paying attention again. Maybe Sunday morning for Wisconsin. But I'm going to keep trying to do the MASAP. Tomorrow, I'm not doing nothing. I'm telling you. Well, when I say I'm not doing nothing, that's not entirely true. I don't never do anything. I never do nothing, right? But I got a lot I got to do. I got to make the stuffed mushrooms. I got to bring the tree in from the storage unit because it takes Laura a long time to get the tree going. I have a lot of decorations I got to put up. We had some stuff that backed us up. We had some repairs. Like anyone who knows, with a new house, it settles. And after like 3 years, things have to be done. So we were doing that, kind of slowed us down. But yeah, I mean, ASAP. I really don't want to wait so long. I really don't. I would like to try to get Iowa out, maybe even tomorrow. I'm serious. That would be good. Richard. Hi, Laura. Question for Rich. Do you think the ruling yesterday by the corrupt judge in Pennsylvania on the mail-in ballots will allow Biden to steal the state from Trump once again? Thank you. You're very welcome, Rich. It is a disgusting ruling. For those who don't know what the ruling is first-time voters who screw up and don't put the date on the envelope are allowed to have their ballots counted anyway. That is textbook exploitation of an election. That is electioneering 101. Somebody was just indicted for it before the 2020 election, a former congressman from California. He was indicted along with election judges who took bribes to look the other way when he was bringing in ballots that were late, that did not meet the deadline, along with other ballot stuffing. He was just, there was a massive ballot stuffing scheme in Philadelphia. And it went on before mail-in ballot was even a thing. He was even doing this with election votes that were coming in after the deadline, election day votes. So I think it's disgusting. I just think that it's going to be, that's why I'm telling you, the more you're never going to stop people from cheating in elections. Human beings are disgustingly flawed and corrupt creatures. That's sad, but it's true. Our nature isn't all bad, but especially when it comes to power, when it comes to things like this, lust, power, money, greed, envy, we do horrible things. And power is a great motivator. So they're going to cheat, and they're going to always cheat. The only way, you'll never stop the cheat, but you can beat the cheat. And you can beat it with overwhelming participation. They're not going to be able to do that if you shrink the pool of votes that really is low-hanging fruit to them. The more you vote, the less votes they have to be able to fudge. All right. So there's not an infinite amount of votes out there. There's this like misconception that they'll just keep adding ballots as many as they need. That's not true. They're adding ballots that you left on the table. If 90% turnout only leaves 10% left, there's a lot less to be able to, that's out there to be able to use and exploit than there would be if there was 70% turnout. Now you have a huge pool, 3 times the size of the, well, I don't want to say huge because turnouts are never, 90%, but normally. But if turnout is much, the higher the turnout is, the smaller the percentage of there is of ballots to be exploited. So it is a disgusting ruling. It's absolutely tragic. Things like this should not be happening in the United States of America. You might have noticed how fast Argentina counted their vote, how fast Brazil counts their vote. We're a third world electoral system compared to these countries, and they're pretty crappy. It's tragic. On locals, but no, my answer is no. That doesn't automatically mean anything. Turn out more people, and you will make a wave so big they will never be able to swim over it. The numbers are there. You just have to do it. WC Lice. I would like Rich's take on Steve D, specifically his take on polling and how he thinks all the polls are wrong and made up. My take is that's misinformation. He's an idiot and you shouldn't listen to him. Should I get the clip again of him on MSNBC after Trump won the nomination in 2016, going on and on about how he's not voting for Donald Trump, that he will not, it's not worth making enemies making enemies of you good people at MSNBC over Donald Trump. I mean, if that doesn't say it all, you good people at MSNBC, the same good people whose rhetoric is so inflammatory and outrageous, they inspired a friggin' nutcase Manchurian candidate to take his firearms and go shoot up Steve Scalise and 4 others because the good people at MSNBC and elsewhere convinced him that Republican lawmakers and leaders were protecting a Russian agent who had seized the White House by criminality, by stealing an election. I did see that stupid asinine tweet. Adam Laxalt barely led. He led by a point here, a point there. We've gone over the polling a million times. Adam Laxalt, his loss was baked into the cake, even in our Laxalt +2. He was down in Washoe with almost no way to catch up with Masto Cortez because she already cracked 50. What was left undecided in Clark, he lost. Why? He didn't lose because the polls were fake. He lost them because Steve Dease's favorite political consultant, Jeff Rowe, stole his money and had walkers at Caesar's Palace gambling instead of in the city suburbs where he was supposed to be knocking on doors to earn votes. He is now being sued for hundreds of thousands of dollars over it. And Trump was outperforming him by 7 points. All of the examples that Steve Deese used are within the sampling era. Not one single example, Iowa or anywhere, that Steve Deese has pointed out is remotely comparable to what is going on here. They're embarrassing themselves, but that's what they've been doing all along. He's a perfect example of somebody who was a never Trump and then played the role of chameleon so he could get views, so he could get ratings, so he can get listeners, so he could get clicks. But the minute he had the chance to pick up his knife and stab it in the back, the president's back, he did it. Because that's what he always was. And I'm telling you, if we could somehow find Steve Deese's ballots today, you will see he not only did not vote for Donald Trump in 2016, I can almost guarantee you he voted for Joe Biden in 2020. I can't tell you how many people I know personally who are so-called Republicans who voted for Joe Biden. And I'm not talking about in the regular world. I'm talking about in this world. They're in an establishment political ruling class, whether it's on the left, whether it's a left-wing Republican ruling class, or it's like Big Con, which is what Steve Deese is part of, the Big Con, conservative con. Eric Erickson, Dana Lash, Ben Dominick, who's over there saying, oh, you could see Trump's already gearing up to lose Iowa. He's 30 points ahead, dude. What are you talking about? And everyone obsesses over the Des Moines Register poll. They have been wrong since 2008. Listen, I've deferred to Ann Seltzer because of her reputation and because when I was coming up, I really respected that woman. But let's not pretend as if she got 16 right, as if she got 20 right. She blew both the caucuses, and then she spiked her own poll because Pete Buttigieg and Joe Biden wanted her to. No doubt with pressure from CNN, who co-sponsored it. Disgraceful. If the former president told me to spike a poll, I'd tell him to stick it up his ass. Can any of them say the same? I don't take orders from anyone. If I was conducting a poll with the Epoch Times and they didn't like the results and they had apparently really too close of a relationship with political campaigns that were complaining about the results and they spiked the poll, guess what? I'm leaking it. I'm not even leaking it underhandedly either. I'm going to Twitter and I'm going, post, sue me. Here, I'll give you your money back. The Iowa State University poll has polled the caucuses more accurately. They literally have Trump with a 30-point lead above 50%. Mid-50s. First choice. First choice. I was talking to my good friend Sean this morning about it. And he's like, are we missing something? Is everybody missing something? And I said, who knows? Maybe they're just really confident in their ability to steal 30 points in an Iowa caucus. I have seen, look, you know it, Laura. I caught Democrats robbing Bernie Sanders in the 2020 caucus. I sent his campaign fictitious allocations of state delegate equivalents. People were just erroneously allocating delegates to Pete Buttigieg that were not correct. They didn't even care about whether they would get caught later on down the road. They tried to steal the caucuses from Rick Santorum in 2012 as well. They even attributed the win to Mitt Romney in the first couple of days. Those of you who are old enough to remember, no, I'm telling the truth. I have seen Republicans and Democrats try to steal the Iowa caucus. I have never seen anyone successfully steal a 30-point lead off of the Iowa caucus. Give me a break. So what Sean and I concluded is that the most likely scenario is that Ben and Steve are delusional. Delusional hacks who cannot separate their own biases and personal opinions and preferences from their analysis. There is no comparable example of a front runner with a lead in the Iowa caucuses right now, this large, losing the Iowa caucuses. And guess what? There's no comparable example of one even being this high in support. George Bush? No. He led McCain, not like this. And I've said this over and over again, only 20% of George Bush's supporters went into the caucus convinced. And he wound up winning with 41%. That was considered a dominant performance, by the way. Getting in the 40s in the Iowa caucus is huge. Huge. Rick Santorum won it with 22%. Ted Cruz won it with 25% or some 24%. You don't win the Iowa caucuses with support that Donald Trump has right now. So the most likely scenario is that these people are just delusional hacks. They're no better than these leftist pundits. They're no better. And it's sad because, again, I don't know what it is. What is the major malfunction in their brains, these people, that they just can't cover politics in the Trump era, honestly. It's freaking tragic. And notice how quick Never Trump like them and Democrats decided to become poll haters and poll critics. I've been all alone for 10 years. All alone criticizing this industry. Now they want to come in, and unfortunately, they're not even making arguments that contribute to the conversation. They're basically unskew the polls 2.0. It's just pathetic. Pathetic. And it's a shame because this industry has real issues. There needs to be real conversations. You as the consumer, you need to know about them. So you know how to take these results, not as gospel, but with a grain. And instead you have idiots out there acting as if a 2-point lead for Adam Laxalt is not holding up on election day, is an adequate or appropriate example to cite for how somebody with a 30-point lead is going to lose. There have only been 2 20-point misses in primaries in modern memory. That's it. One was Gary Hart, and that is totally a different story. Why? Because Gary Hart just got caught cheating on his wife. Back then, that actually mattered. His campaign collapsed. And the other one is Bernie Sanders in the Michigan Democratic primary of 2016. And we've gone over this as an example in the past. It was not widely polled. The few, meaning 2, pollsters that did poll it absolutely showed a late-minute surge to Bernie that really they didn't poll in the final days to see whether or not that had continued. Hillary Clinton had been up 30-something points in Michigan, and then you could see it close to 22, 21. And Bernie eked it out. Bernie didn't lead in every single state. Donald Trump does. Bernie didn't lead nationally. Donald Trump does. Bernie did not have a 45-point national lead. Donald Trump does. They're not comparable. It's really sad. It's sad. And I guarantee you, they will spend their Thanksgiving feeding their delusion. Watch. Watch. Watch the Holy Rollers. Watch the Bible Thumpers. Watch them. Guarantee. Is Trump better off with more people on the ballot to encourage higher levels of participation and thus making the capacity of fraud less? Theoretically, yes. That's a really good that is a really good question, because that is what we talked about before. Like in some states, RFK, for instance, hurts Trump. He does. And in some very important states, he hurts Trump. However, it's not enough to take his lead away. It would encourage higher participation. So in some states, that will be the case. I don't know. We'll just have to see. There's evidence that RFK's appeal is slipping. So what we found in Pennsylvania this time, RFK hurts him. He didn't hurt him as much as he did in our last poll. Right? So it's interesting. And we'll see whether or not that continues. How likely is it to flip 3 seats in Michigan? 3, 7, and 8. Slotkin is out, which tells you that Slotkin knows Trump's going to be the nominee. Slotkin knows Trump's going to run up numbers in her district. Livingston used to be dominant over there. It's not the case anymore, but with Trump on the ballot, he's going to crush it. That tells you our polling in Oakland is right. Slotkin running away shows you that our polling in Oakland is right. Now it depends who these candidates are and what they run on. Michigan 3 should have been won in 2022. It wasn't won because Kevin McCarthy and Tom Emmer abandoned John Gibbs, gave him bad advice, even sabotaged him. Forced John Gibbs to fire me, who helped him win the primary, against a household name, promising him that for money if he did. And I told John, I have no hard feelings. No hard feelings at all. Got to do what you got to do. But they didn't even give him the money. I rarely get involved in campaigns. Rarely. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I better like you, you know? And I really did like John. And it came across like terribly in that campaign to the general electorate. They marketed him totally wrong. A friggin' tragedy. This guy who, worked for Apple, developed for Apple, did mission work in Japan. And they made him scary over abortion because they told him he can't respond. Meanwhile, he's an affluent, African-American, intelligent, well-credentialed young man, and that should have been all over the Kent County suburbs. Pathetic. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, I think 8 is really likely because Slotkin is out and running like hell, and that tells you. 3, 7, and 8 are certainly the targets. We'll see. With these numbers, Tristan, they're losing at least 2 of them. With these numbers, if they were to hold, oh yeah. But we'll see. If look at Emerson poll, look at how far Trump is running ahead of generic Republicans on the House ballot. It's because the party's not united. There are too many people who hear Republican. They don't think Donald Trump. They think backstabbers of Donald Trump. I can't wait to vote for Donald Trump, but Republicans, those backstabbers, those scumbags, those two-timers, those Bushies, those Romneys. No. And by the way, people like Reynolds and DeSantis reinforce that. How, Rich? Why? By being backstabbers. That's how. How significant is it that a Republican won in Charleston for the first time in 150 years? You know what? I don't give a damn what anybody says. So I think it shows, again, some of that realignment that we're talking about. I really do. Can Trump pull Allegheny numbers in Milwaukee County, Wisconsin, or is ceiling 30% there due to demographics? Love the Rust Belt poll and what you do. Thank you so much. We're going to find out. I don't want to say too much yet here, but it does look like he pulls up a couple of points in Milwaukee County. It does. We're going to be, I think, pretty close to what stacked data shows there, but stay tuned, all right? And I'm thinking it's not going to be a lot, but, 3 points, third of the vote. It is difficult. The demographics are tough, but I think there is certainly a working class constituency in Milwaukee. And I don't know how much more Democrat some of them are going to be. They're culturally in Democratic areas, so Democrats are going to do better with that white working class vote in an area like that than they would outside, say, Pittsburgh suburb or something. Because this is if anyone's been to Dane and Milwaukee, these are really liberal areas. All right, this is Soy Boy Central. Just this. So yeah, man, it's 2:00. All right, let me get to it. Don't forget, my invitation to attend the Iowa caucus in Davenport still stands. Thanks, Dale. And believe me, we have not. That would be great for us to do that. We do have election coverage we have to do, but it would be cool if we could somehow figure out how to do on-site Iowa caucus election coverage. That would be really cool. Is Trump better off with... Oh, I already read that. Trump learned how to talk. I'll say it again. Trump learned how to talk with the working class when he was living in Cincy as a young man. He knows this state. Yeah. He's very good at that. He certainly does. Does the Vanderplat's endorsement of DeSantis push him over to second? I don't know. I don't know yet. I really don't. Why? Because there's a group of it always was, non-conservative, non-MAGA, never Trump, that want to win. And DeSantis having a hard time against Haley argument that he's dead in the water after. It's so funny. He keeps Donald Trump's high risk, low reward. He's the highest risk candidate out there. If you believe history, if you believe reality, he's going to die after New Hampshire. He's done. He's done. And even if he wants to somehow figure out how to pull out the nomination, he's finished. 6-week abortion bans, he's finished. He's the highest risk candidate out there outside. Nikki Haley is too, because we just know she would get crushed. The polling is not real. She would get killed. But, compared to Donald Trump, he's way higher risk. It's not even close. Untold stories today at 1:30 since the JFK assassination. I don't know what the hell happened. You know, that's today. I don't know. We were
Yeah,
supposed to be a
no, it's today.
yeah, but
Read what I wrote.
we did not get into
I
uh
have it posted and everything.
that's during our show. I mean, no, I'm not gonna last minute tell people that this is sloppy. Sorry.
Okay.
It's
You did.
I listen, put it out there, grab the link, do it, but we're still in the middle of the show. I'm telling people to switch over in something 30 minutes late. Oh, okay. Well, okay. If you're gonna be, we're gonna be there doing it? Well, then that's why things should be a little bit more organized. All right. What do you think of Jenna Ellis turning against MAGA? Jenna Ellis is, that's who I was talking about when I was talking about mentally unstable person having a divorce over social media. It's not, I would totally ignore her. Let me just say this about the things that she said about the case itself. She's not smart enough to understand what was going on. I'm not going to get into how much of this because I don't want to be roped in with this crap with Georgia and everything else. She is not smart enough to understand how elections are conducted, let alone whether or not she knows how things were done, right or wrong, or, what was fudged, what wasn't. And then she said she listened to the lawyers and didn't do her research. Well, there you go. She's admitting she wasn't able to comprehend it, so she just took the word of other people. I can tell you this, she was never privy for some of these conversations. So I don't know, that's part of her plea deal. Or part of her plea deal is to tell the jury, tell people, tell the public, whatever Fannie Willis wants her to tell them. What do you think? Okay, let me get through replay. How do I view a replay of the book club Zoom since I can usually do Sundays? Go to Locals. Yeah, if you are a subscriber on Locals or YouTube, it is better to subscribe to Locals for the replays. It is because the content list is there, playlist is there, and you could just go and do it. Ooh, a car blew up at Rainbow Bridge, Niagara Falls. Oh, Lord, I hope nobody's hurt. See, I was getting worried about this terrorism crap, and they do this during the holidays, too. Where's the link, Laura? Laura's got a link. We're going over. I'm going to end it now so we can go over and join Mark and Eric. They got some good favorable coverage out of this, but I really would have appreciated this done a lot smoother than this. But yeah, if you're an annual supporter on Locals, speaking of which, here's a perfect time if you want something extra for it. Carrie, you're about to get it right now. Anybody, if you're an annual supporter already, or you are thinking this is a great time to join up to become one, the JFK assassination special that Mark Robert and Eric Hunley are working on, total AI. It's 5-part miniseries. I tell you what, I've been looking forward to it for a long time. Mark has gotten a lot of really good press coverage on it, and it looks really cool. Mark, when it comes to the JFK assassination, I don't think I would listen to anybody more than Mark Robert because he knows, he has been listening to people who know better for way longer than than most people who claim to know about this issue. I've learned a lot from Mark about this issue. It's so nuanced, it's not like what you think about the JFK assassination and the role certain agencies may have played in it. It's much more nuanced. And there's one character in particular. I'm not going to get into it. This would be a perfect time to do it. You got this link for me, babe? Where is it? I want to get it and put it in the thing. Oh, you got it? Okay. Yeah. Can you give it to me? Oh, it's so easy. Very cool. Can I go myself to it? Because I would like to go and check this out. Yeah, Laura looks like she didn't put it on. I'm putting it on YouTube now. Yeah, okay, she did. So I'll do it as well. Look on Getter. Sometimes Getter stops us. There, it's on Getter. Now would be a great time, like I said, to join Locals. Sign up on Locals, and you're going to get this. It's a really cool miniseries done with a lot of like AI narration that's just above. Mark and I were talking a couple of weeks ago about how just incredible AI technology has become. But I'm going to shut up and I'm going to let I'm going to let them do their thing because we have to go if you're not, so you don't miss it. All right, but sign up, peoplespundit.locals.com. Locals, keep an eye out for the new results of the Rust Belt poll that we do, and we will see you on Unstructured because I'm going over there right now, right? All the best, folks. I'm not going to play our little nice Beowulf outro. We're just going to go ahead and go and make it quick so you guys can get over there in time. All right, all the best, folks. Talk to you soon. And happy Thanksgiving!